Hello guys, Furball the Hammy, your friendly neighborhood hamster is here again for another video. Today's video will be about correcting the many mistakes I see most players make when using the auction house. Whether you are an early, mid, late or even an endgame player, this video will definitely be helpful. So today I will be uncovering the 4 most common mistakes that I see most players do when they make use of the auction house. So first and foremost, time is money, and let's begin with the first mistake. The most common mistake and the most controversial mistake in my opinion. Mistake number 1. Auctioning only on peak hours. This is the most common mistake I've seen. Honestly, the idea that peak hours is the best to sell items has been floating around for everywhere for a while now. This is the most common misconception I've seen. Honestly, the idea that peak hours is the best to sell items has been floating around everywhere in Hypixel Skyblock for a while now. Do you really think auctioning your items during peak hours will guarantee you better sales when almost everyone knows when peak hours are? It used to work in the start when there was imperfect information, but now there is plenty of knowledge on off-peak and peak hours that everyone now auctions during peak hours, and that is what creates the problem as to why this isn't the best method or the best method to make use of the auction house. Why? Just look at any economic model graph, or simply put, the demand-supply graph. Since everyone knows when peak hours are and has this general consensus that peak hours usually sell for more people will auction during peak hours, right? This will result in the supply of the items to rise. But you may be asking, wouldn't there be a demand increase as well? Well, that's true because it is during peak hours where there are more people online, and thus there will be more demand during the peak hour. So supply increases and demand increases, and you know what happens? There's little to no price change. Now, let's take a look for off-peak hour sales. Since the majority of players now shifted their sales to peak hours due to the assertion that peak hours somehow sell for more, there would be less people auctioning during off-peak hours. And because of that, supply will fall. And although demand also falls since it is off-peak, and what you will realize is that there will also be no price change. So yes, here's the economic proof as to why there will be literally, absolutely, almost no difference whether you auction on off-peak or peak hours. Because of perfect information, which resulted in your supernormal profits by selling on peak hours to have been competed and taken away from other players who have followed suit. And yes, there will be abnormalities where you sell for items over the average price, but that is based on purely luck as to whether some crazy kid bids on your items and overbids it and whatnot, such as someone bidding 1.5 million on my tarantula helmet that's absolutely clean. So yeah, be sure to take note of this, so in the future you need not always end your auction during peak hours, and in fact there are a lot more other factors which determines how well your item will sell, which I will be covering on the next 3 mistakes. Next on, moving on to mistake number 2, not finding a buyer first. Honestly, if you are into the Slayer business and you are too lazy to buy enchanted materials to craft your Tarantula Silk, Revenant Viscera or even Gold Teeth, this is the most important tip for you. Instead of blindly auctioning your raw materials like Revenant Flesh, Wolf Teeth or Tarantula Web on the auction house, find a buyer first. This is extremely useful, especially when you are selling items in bulk, stacks upon stacks of materials which I am talking about. So now you may be asking, why shouldn't we just auction them? Because people are looking for base materials such as Wolf Teeth, Revenant Flesh and Tarantula Web. These people who are looking for such base materials usually need them in high amounts, and just like any other normal human being, they prefer to just buy it from one person in one deal and to get it done and over with, because humans, fun fact, are naturally lazy. And when you do end up auctioning them, they may end up going for extremely low prices because number 1, there are a few people bidding on such basic items because it is inconvenient for them. Because not only must you bid on a bunch of these basic materials such as Wolf Teeth, Revenant Flesh and Tarantula Web, after buying all of these raw materials, you yourself require to buy a bunch of enchanted materials to craft these raw materials into actually useful materials to craft the good stuff in the game. And because of that, there would generally be low demand for such raw materials on the auction house. And because of that, it will end up selling for pretty low. And the best part is that these players that you find a buyer from on the Discord server such as Skyblock Z or even my Discord server, link in the description down below, and because of that, these players might actually pay you even more per stack because you save them time. And these people who are usually looking for hundreds of stacks of Wolf Teeth, Revenant Flesh or Tarantula Web are usually very rich people who are looking to craft expensive items such as the Hunter Ring, the Overflux Power Orb, and much more. And yeah, don't forget the Mosquito Bow. It requires 3 stacks of Tarantula Silk, and it requires almost 9 double chests of Tarantula Web. And that's why the rich people are willing to pay a lot, because this is extremely convenient for them as compared to them requiring to bid on like 3 to 5 full pages of base and of the base raw materials, because it is extremely inconvenient for them. And because of this convenience that you brought them, they might end up actually paying you even more. So yeah, be sure to find a buyer, especially if you're selling a lot of items in bulk. They may actually end up paying you even more than what the auction house might. And now moving on to mistake number 3. Not setting base bids for specific items. I always have a handful of people DMing me on Discord as to why the Tarantula armor selling strategy does not work. I will tell you why once again if you didn't watch through the entire video, and if you still DM me about why this method doesn't work, I will go to your house and set the base bids. There are some items that you want to set a base bid on. Such items are items with higher supply than demand or low supply and low demand. Because when you don't set a base bid on such items, there will be little competition for your items, leading to some of your items getting lowballed. And I assume most of you guys don't enjoy being lowballed, right? So, what would be the examples of these items? Such examples would be Tarantula armor. Bet you didn't expect this after my lecture for you guys. Other options will be the Pooch Sword, Red Claw Egg, Tarantula Web and Wolf Teeth, Spider Artifact, Devour Ring, and Zombie Artifact, just to name a few. However, there are some items which you cannot set base bids on. For example, Enchanted Books, because they are common and Hypixel Skyblock is dumb, so it doesn't allow you to set base bids on common items such as Sharpness 6 books, so you have to auction them for very cheap base prices. So yeah, just to take note of that. And other items which cannot be auctioned with high base bids are items which are under the uncommon rarity. For example, Spider Talismans. So now if you are wondering how should you sell those items, there are 2 strategies. Number 1, upgrade the rarity of the item. This only works for some items which can be upgraded like the Spider Talisman into the Spider Ring, because when an item has a rarity of rare or higher, a base bid of whatever price you desire will work. However, it only works on certain items and it is not universally applicable. Tip number 2, set a base bid. It's very simply put, just set the base bid of what you want the item to sell for. Fun fact, if you don't set a base bid for Tarantula armor, which was basically what I did, my Tarantula helmet almost sold for 30,000 coins, which is extremely tragic. In fact, if I do set base bids on Tarantula helmets, I usually set them for 500,000 coins at base bids, and usually they sell for around and usually they do sell for 500k. Sometimes they go above and beyond 1 million because of crazy people, and sometimes they don't sell. However, 60 to 70% of the time, they do sell. And honestly, I would rather sell my items for 500k or higher rather than to sell items for 30k and below, because I know that when I set my base bids for 500k, I do lose some money, but I don't lose as much as getting lowballed to the point of oblivion of 30,000 coins. So yeah, that is why you should set a base bid. And the third option and strategy you might have is to get a rich friend. Ask a rich obnoxious friend to bid on your auction for a base bid, so you can save 5% of the coins setting up the base bid. Now this is guaranteed and is one of the best strategies, because you can set a base bid which you can fully control, and all you need to do is to ask your friend to bid on it. And because of that, you need not tank 5% of the auction fee to set up the base bid, of course. And because of that, you will save quite a bit of coins in the long run, but the assumption is that you have access to rich friends, which is not very applicable for everyone, but if you do have one, be sure to make use of them. Mistake number 4, supply sniping. No, I mean this isn't a mistake, but something people miss out doing. I mentioned this in my previous video, but I will recap it quickly. Simply put, just don't end your auction at the same time or close ending times to others. Because by doing so, you artificially boost the supply in that hour, which means that instead of a lot of people competing for one item, there will now be a lot of people competing for 2 items, which will obviously lower the end sell prices for both items. It's basic supply and demand analysis and study of economics. Thus, it is better to set the end price for your items away from other of the same auctions ending at the same time. For more clarity, let's take this for an example. Let's say you are selling red claw eggs and you see 3 red claw eggs ending. First one ending in 2 hours, second one ending in 5 hours, and the last one ending in 12 hours. You want to set your red claw egg to end between 9 to 16 hours because by then you are not competing with other people who are selling their red claw eggs. And because of that, you also aren't artificially boosting the supply during the time that your auction ends, which means that there will be more likely for actually people to actually fight for bids on your items, which actually results in bidding wars because there is less supply and there is only one red claw egg ending in that range. And because of that, there is a higher chance for bidding wars, and because of that, you will end up making more money from the auction. And with that, these are my 4 tips and mistakes that I honestly see most players do when they make use of the auction house. And because of that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and you guys found my tips useful to help sell your items for even more than what you expected them to sell for. And with that, this is Furball the Hammy, your beloved hamster, signing out.